Hi there, welcome back. In this video, I'll cover a very basic concept in which many Azure beginners get confused, that is Azure Snapshot and Backup. So most beginners think that the snapshot and backups are the same thing, but that misunderstanding can become a huge problem because snapshots are not designed to replace proper backup. In this video, I'll explain the real difference between Azure Snapshot and Azure Backup. So by the end, you will know exactly when to use snapshots, backup. So first, let's understand Azure Snapshot. So a snapshot is basically a point in time copy of a managed disk. And the flow for the snapshot is you go to virtual machine and there is an option at the disk to create a snapshot. Then from snapshot, when you want to restore or create a VM, you will create a disk out of it and then use it to create the virtual machine. So snapshot is basically used when you want a short time protection or before you want to make changes to your virtual machine, which you know can lead to a issue. At that point of time, you would need a snapshot and you want a quick rollback and testing and development purposes. So suppose you are mitigating a vulnerability or upgrading an application, and sometimes you want a copy of your virtual machine before actually upgrading or making any changes so that in case something goes wrong, you can revert back to your original state. So snapshots are usually best for short-term protection before patching servers or software upgrades or before risky configuration changes. And if you are aware that in case something can go wrong, you want your virtual machine to go back to original state, you can have a quick snapshot and restore them quickly. But here's the important part that snapshots have major limitations. They are not enterprise grade backups, and this is where many people get confused. Snapshot do not provide long-term retention. There is no centralized backup management. Also, there is no built-in soft delete or immutability. And normally snapshots stay in the same region unless manually copied. So there's a bit of hassle there as well. So these are limitations which we have with Azure Snapshot. And to summarize the limitations, let's take an example. If a ransomware attacks your environment or someone deletes resources weeks later, Snapshot alone may not help you. So the service which can help you with this kind of issues is Azure Backup. Now let's compare with Azure Backup. Azure Backup is a fully managed backup solution provided by Microsoft Azure. So in this case, the process is that you will have a virtual machine, a extension gets installed, and the recovery services vault is where all your backups will go, right? We attach the policies, that is basically the schedule, how we want our backups to take place, and then attach our virtual machine, and that is how backup is taken. Then eventually after the backup, it stores them securely inside a backup vault. Now the key benefits we get is you get a retention policies, that is you can specify how long you want to keep the backups, that is daily, weekly, monthly, or even yearly. Second, we have is a centralized backup management solution. You can manage multiple backups from one pane of view, that is recovery services vault. And third, we have is soft delete and immutability. So this will help protect backups from accidental or malicious deletion. And finally, we have is an enterprise grade recovery capabilities that can help you recover multiple virtual machines all together and manage the job and all kind of data we can check from the vault. Now let's compare them side by side. So the purpose is for snapshot, we have a point in time copy of a disk, right? And Azure Backup is usually used when we want our resource to be protected for a longer duration and managed automatically via Azure policies. And for retention, we have no manual management. Once a snapshot is taken, you have to manually delete if you do not need the snapshot. It's not going to get removed automatically. And for Azure Backup, we have the retention period. We can specify it as a daily, weekly, monthly, or even yearly. Snapshot management is manual and backup is managed by the vault. Resources, policies, how long do we want to retain is managed by the vault. And data protection is basic we get in the snapshot. In Azure Backup with advanced we get features like soft delete, immutability, etc. Disaster recovery, it's limited. In case a region goes down, if we have a snapshot, we would need to manually copy the snapshot to another region. But in Azure Backup, we can use the cross region restore, in which the Azure Backup will copy your backup to a different region. And in case a region goes down, we can recover our backups from a different region. And in ransomware protection, we do not have any. In Azure Backup, yes, we do have with immutability and soft delete. Cost is usually cheaper. With Azure Backup, there is more cost associated with it, but we get a lot of features like automatic deletion of backup. We can select which disk we want to backup, or we can remove which we do not want, right? So you can decide according to your use case. If it's just for a dev test environment, you probably don't need a Azure Backup. You can work with the snapshot weekly, or once you can configure via automation account. I already have a video which I made how we can automate snapshot creation via automation account. I'll share the link in the chat in the description. And next is the recommendation for production backup. It's not recommended because there's no management. We have to manually check everything, but in the Azure Backup everything is managed and we get a lot of features, so it's production grade ready. Let's understand this with a real world scenario. Imagine you are updating a production application server. Flow will be before updating your application, you will take a snapshot, and after you have taken the snapshot, you can proceed with any major updates to your application or configuration. And in case something goes wrong, you can revert back to the original state from the snapshot. And this is the simple process in case for snapshot. But now imagine something worse happens, a ransomware attack or accidental deletion discovered after several weeks. In that situation, snapshot may not be enough. That's where Azure Backup comes in and becomes critical because it provides all these features. So when should you use each one? So we should use snapshots for pre-change safety, if there's a testing or a quick rollback or a short-term needs. And you should use Azure Backup for production workloads, long-term recovery, business continuity or compliance or ransomware protections. This can help you to decide which service you should lean on. And I hope this video finally made Azure Snapshot versus Azure Backup clear. If this video helped you, make sure to like the video and subscribe to Cloud with Daria. And I'll see you in the next one.